CREWASIS is a decision intelligence platform that finds hidden patterns and trends in data for consumer brands. So I drove from New York yesterday and spent 4 hours in the car to come see all of you. And so I want to say thank you for coming, and I hope to see you also in New York next week. So in terms of the actual agenda for today, I'm very honored to have two friends, colleagues, and also respected individuals in the AI industry here with me today. So the first one I'm going to introduce is Shunyuan. And Shunyuan Zhang is a professor we met actually 6 years ago. And for those of you that can appreciate this, because I do sales for CREWASIS as well, I actually sent an email, which was a cold email, to Shunyuan. And we ended up talking, and then obviously our passion for AI, for machine learning, for just understanding enterprise customers went from there. And so I am going to get Shunyuan to introduce herself as well and her background. But some special things you should know: she teaches the MBA students at Harvard Business School. She's an associate professor. She also did her degree at Carnegie Mellon, her PhD. And she also did her degree in the science school in China in technology. So Shunyuan has an immense amount of experience in machine learning and AI, and I'm really super excited for you to get a chance to learn from her. So I'll pass it to you, Shunyuan, to do a quick intro.
Woo! Thank you, Sharon, for having me, and thank you all for coming to the panel. I mean, our day one started with a cold call, but I'm sure the panel today will be one of the hottest panel discussions I've ever been. I'm super excited about it because the topic we're talking about today, it really touches my heart. I'm a professor in marketing at Harvard Business School, and I'm just fascinated by how AI is really changing the ways that consumers are discovering products and engaging with brands. And for that to happen, how firms really adopt AI in their companies, especially within customer-facing, what I call boundary-facing units. So I spend most of my time studying how companies really make that happen to have a good AI initiative or project. And by AI project, I mean not just a good AI demo version, but AI gets really adapted into people's workflow and making changes happen. And that's where things get really interesting, but complicated, I guess. We'll really get into that. Look forward to that.
Thank you, Shunyuan, and welcome. The other speaker with us and other panelists today is Kris Brown. And again, in the true spirit of networking and as founders, investors, etc., we sat beside each other on a plane, and that was 8 years ago. And Kris is the head of customer excellence at Data Sentinel. They're also a co-sponsor of the event today, so thank you, Kris, for that. Kris has done multiple roles, so he worked in data engineering, in product, as well as then customer excellence, and really taking the product, whoops, I turned it, really taking the, whoop, is this one working? Nope, I turned it off by accident. It's my fault. Okay, there we go, we're back. Can't have a glitch without, can't have a panel without a small glitch, including our entire panel being at the side, watching from the shade, which we really appreciate you being here, and I'm dying in the sun here. So Kris Brown has done extensive amount of work across product and then customers, so I will also get Kris to introduce himself as well.
Thank you, Sharon, and thank you everybody for coming. And as Sharon said, my name is Kris Brown. I run customer experience for Data Sentinel. Data Sentinel is a data privacy platform, and we originally developed the platform to support compliance with regulations like GDPR, CCPA, those kind of things across structured and unstructured data. What that's turned into now is a benefit in adopting AI. And so as you start to implement AI, whether it's your own personal use or within your organization, you need guardrails and governance around that. And what we've been seeing a lot is when companies adopt AI, there's a need to have those guardrails in terms of consent, in terms of compliance to the various regulations. and to be able to accelerate that adoption through trusted data and high data quality. And that's where our platform comes into it, and that's where I'm really excited to speak about today.
Thank you, Kris. Okay, so we send out some information about what we're going to talk about. Again, I said this isn't the LinkedIn version, the investor deck version. This is the real version. So for all of you, we've worked with many enterprise customers. CREWASIS is going into a seed round. So we have worked with large logos, and we built our platform based on that. Shunyuan has experience working and testing those pilots. And then Kris is focused on the data security and protection. So our goal today is to tell you about what's actually working, what's not, and why. Why are some AI initiatives falling apart after the pilot stage, and what makes some companies very successful at using them? We're going to talk about things like shadow subscriptions, where people are bypassing their enterprise leaders and getting onto a subscription for an AI platform using their credit card or employee card and trying to figure and test things out on their own. And then from the founder perspective, which is kind of my perspective as well, is how do you get enterprise customers on board and get them to adopt innovation around AI? So the first question I'm going to do is ask everyone to talk about their definition of AI and then agentic AI. So I will ask Shunyuan to start.
Sure. I think by definition, they differ on the level of autonomy, right? Agentic AI is more autonomous than generic AI. But there's, of course, more than that. And the simplest way I'd use is AI is like you having a very smart assistant sitting next to you. You ask it something, it gives you some output like summary of documents, drafting email, or performing some data analytics. But then you are still driving the whole goal and what tasks are really need to be performed. You are still, human are in the driver's seat. But agentic AI is like hiring someone who is going to, you give them a goal that you define, say this is about, drafting a follow-up email with my clients. And then the agentic AI will first understand the goal and then define the sequence of tasks and also decompose what needs to be done along the way with many different subtasks, like pulling out data from your CRM system and then summarizing what has been going on with the clients, what are the pain points, and drafting email, and then having follow-up meetings. So this is like agentic AI. They define a sequence of subtasks to achieve a goal that you give to the agentic AI, and then they know what are the systems and database they need to work through across multiple different systems, and that's how I think about agentic AI.
Excellent, thank you, Shunyuan. Kris, going to give you a chance to answer that question as well.
Sure, thank you. So I think we're all fairly familiar with AI in general and how you use and interact with that, where there's human interaction to, the other day I was building a PowerPoint, and the way I build a PowerPoint this week versus the way I built a PowerPoint 18 months ago or even 12 months ago is vastly different because of AI now. Then you think of AI, agentic AI, and the automation involved in that's a different level. I'm a big fan of Formula One, and so when you look at Formula One and some of the things that are being done there on the cutting edge, you think, okay, well, how does AI play a part here? And it's not allowed in the actual race, the actual cockpit. But think of the pit stops that the Formula One cars do, and how you simulate that, and all the data feeds into that, the weather, where the position of the car is going to be on the track when it comes out. And this is where it gets really complicated as well. What's the biometric data of the drivers themselves, and how do you protect that? So having all those factors and then automating that second after second within the race as well to get real-time results. That's agentic AI cutting edge in action. And it's one that's got to be done with the right governance and compliance in place, because if you don't do that, you're going to have all the drivers' personal information across the internet.
And then I'll just give a perspective from some of the large companies that we work with. So they're global consumer brands. And the biggest thing that they wanted to do in the last couple of years was incorporate AI to demonstrate return on investment. And I think the biggest thing that they came back to us with is we've been told or tasked to incorporate AI, we need to show value fast, and we need to be able to show that there is some sort of dollar value being created as well. So when you think of large consumer brands, how many people think of consumer healthcare brands like Sensodyne, Pronamel, those sort of brands? Then fashion and retail, which would be Nike, Reebok, New Balance, even Supreme. And then you could think of food and beverage like Wrigley. You could think of Mars, which is part of the same umbrella. You can think of things like Kenvue as well, which is another global healthcare company. So I just listed a whole bunch so that you get an idea of who we're talking about. And all of them were faced with the fact that the P&L is being pressured more than ever. You've seen global industries consolidate, and you've also seen how even consulting today has reduced headcount because of AI. And then you've seen a small retraction because they're like, wait a second, we still needed humans to do the job. So although artificial intelligence, which I like to bring it back to how we decided what AI was, to it is the study of the brain. It's the study of how your brain functions and then being able to automate those tasks. So if you're able to automate a task so your brain doesn't have to do it because it's something you shouldn't have to do itself, then it speeds up your ability to work on more strategic things. And we're starting to see even strategy being done with a lot of the large language models like ChatGPT and Claude. So for these large enterprise companies, and we knew Claude, and I think everyone saw that Claude is now ahead of OpenAI. Did everyone see that in the news? If you didn't, it just got announced. And in addition to that, it was based on the fact that enterprise was the goal that they went after, enterprise companies, because they knew there would be guardrails. So when you think of artificial intelligence and the fact that large language models pushed us into that era, Agentic AI is now taking the ability of companies to now, these processes they've already created, start talking to each other without humans in the loop. So I'm going to kind of leave it for question and answer for people to ask more questions later, but just know this is established across every industry. I've accelerated AI, now what I need to do next. And some of these companies haven't even instituted AI where they're showing ROI, so they're trying to speed up that process as well. So the next question I'm going to go to is on what's working and why. So again, I'll start with Shunyuan because she's on my right here. And you've seen, and why did it work so well? And then what did they do to measure the success?
So let me give you a very concrete example. This is a startup that develops AI products for customer support, customer service, and we worked with them. And the context is that one of their clients is this subscription-based company. And the company gets a lot of customer online inquiries and complaints. So they have this online chat channel for customer service agents to really, support and chat with customers online. And then they have, and as you can imagine, this is a labor-intensive work. So they have AI to support customer service agents. They have a really great AI projects because I'll just tell you, I think one of the smartest thing they do was the design of AI features. So when customer comes in with some inquiries or complaints, the AI will analyze customer conversation data and then suggest replies to the customer service agents. Now, the AI suggestions appear on the bottom of the agent's screen. And it's up to the agents to decide whether they want to follow a suggestion or a decline, or maybe accept with some minor modifications. So it is, and AI never gets to talk to the customer directly. It's this customer service agent who is still driving the conversation. So they still have the authority of decision making and driving the online chatting. And the results were great. A couple of metrics. One, the response time reduced by more than 20%, so faster responses. And customer sentiment or satisfaction went up by more than 40%. So they're doing a job better and faster. And get this, they were able to retain more at-risk customers who called in to cancel their subscription, which is a big problem for the company. And they do this without less spending on coupons and discounts that they used to retain the customers. So the customer service agents were even doing very good customer retention works. And I think they were able to really pull this off is that one, they make sure that the AI's output is one of the inputs to the employee, right? It doesn't automatically replace. So agents feel they are being augmented, not automated or replaced. And the two is that it is still the agents that preserve their decision authority, and they decide how to really engage with the customers. And three, the company actually, the CX lead or customer service head actually talk to the service agents and being like, hey, now you have AI, take care of some of the mechanical tasks, and you actually have more time and mental capacity to focus on those really difficult conversations where customer emotion stake is high, and also just really focus on how can I really retain the customers with less spending on coupon and discount, and that can actually become part of their new KPI. So think about the customer service agents, their roles are not eliminated, they are actually upgraded to become a customer retention strategist to some extent. So I think this is really a number of things that they did really well to really make this work.
Yeah, I love that example, Shunyuan, because I think now students are coming out of school learning AI and working with AI, so they already have the tools to do it. So the expectation is they are operating at a higher level. So I know there's a lot of fear that AI is taking jobs, but it's more around humans still have to be the subject matter expert. I read an article just yesterday that McKinsey put out, and it was defining the types of AI implemented. And the one that you're talking about is sort of an M model, where they're talking about pillars within the organization that have AI, and you still need humans to be able to do that. And then the T-shaped version of that is that it is an expert, and you're a subject matter expert, and you're able to build AI as a subject matter expert because you understand the workflow so well that you're able to see it from start to finish. And a lot of people were scared or feared doing that before, whereas actually that's how the best AI models and how agentic workflows are going to be learned and developed today. So thank you for that example. Kris, over to you.
So within our space, document intelligence has become an important factor. And by that, it's understanding what documents you have, how they're classified, and then how you can use them going forward. So a really good example that we found is working with a large system integrator, where their sales team are looking to build sales contracts very quickly. And so they need to feed in all the information from their practice leads. And I was in this world a little while ago because I was a practice lead for a company called Prolifics. And building the sales contracts based on experience and based on historical contracts was really important, but it was a very inefficient process. That's now been streamlined, so you can gather the best of all the previous sales contracts, add your own capabilities through chat, and then automate the signing process through the defined workflow. And that's become a lot more efficient in the last 12 to 18 months by using some of those processes, but also making sure, again, the guardrails are in place. So with this particular company that we're working with, they've got various practices. They've got a government practice, they've got a financial services practice, they've got an entertainment practice, a consumer packaged goods practice. And you can cross-pollinate some of those contracts, but you absolutely can't cross-pollinate things like government. Government contracts need to stay separate, and the practice lead for government contracts needs to be the only one that sees that data. So having that segregation and that authority to implement sales contracts based upon consent for for what you have in place. So even though you may be able to see the data, you may not be able to use that data. And even if you can see it, should you be able to see it? So having that governance in place and then leveraging AI for the automated workflows beyond, that's a use case that we're seeing a lot today.
Awesome. Yeah, so documents obviously across all industries have been an area that have been overlooked. And so it's interesting to see that there's still a long way to
in some companies, you're literally talking about 20, 30, 40 years worth of data because people are hoarders by nature. And so, and so you see a lot of documents being hoarded, some of which you shouldn't do. So some of them go directly against various privacy laws we have in place across the country and across the world.
I know I'm guilty of hoarding data, but I think I've lost a lot on phones that I've changed over the years. So the next question is around AI failing. And then for both of you, I'd like you to explain a workflow or a way that you would implement an AI project based on what your experience is that would help at least put guardrails in to make it successful. So again, why something has failed at a large company or an enterprise.
So let me begin with giving what I've seen regarding AI projects and the common failure that I've seen, and then I want to briefly talk about sort of the diagnosis or the frictions why we're seeing this, and then after diagnosis we can talk about what is the mitigation or the solution that we have. I think this is not uncommon, right? We've seen a lot of companies say we want to do AI transformation, let's do AI project. A lot of excitement. What you see is that the company will have an AI model either built internally or they acquire from their vendor. They do some pilot testing in the lab, and then when it's in the pilot phase, everyone says, "Oh my God, this is a great AI model. Let's do it." And the CEO, senior executives get excited. You have the budget, the funding secured. Management says, "Let's do it." But then you look at the results, nothing has really changed. If you ask, are people really using the AI? The answer is yes and no. They maybe have signed on once or twice, but then quickly, and this is what we see with Microsoft Copilot for their sales organization, quickly go back doing things the old ways. And I think we've been diagnosing the problem wrong. And people might say, well, that's model failure, implementation failure, or even blame people for being lazy. But I think a lot of the time, people are that's rational behavior. And here's why. A lot of AI models, AI tools fall into this category that I call self-disruptive technologies, meaning they improve organizations' performance and productivity. So if you calculate firm level ROI, it makes sense. But then these AI tools also disrupt, it's self-disruptive because they disrupt the very roles and people who actually need to improve and use the system in their day-to-day work. So you're basically when you think about AI implementation, transformation, you're basically asking people to adopt AI tool that will threaten their identity, making their expertise and judgment smaller, reduced, making their control shifted, and even making them feel that their expertise is less relevant or their work meaning is less so. Of course, they resist. That's actually a rational behavior. And we see this shows up in 3 different ways. The first is role compression, meaning your expertise and judgment that define who you are, that you are being proud of, are now automated by AI. You are changing from being a decider, decision maker, to a monitor, or sometimes even rubber stamp. The second is control shift. So your discretion, authority shifts control, shifts from your side to the algorithm or a central team. And the third one is span erosion, meaning the span of your influence, the budgets, the people, the scope, the team that you manage all get smaller, even if your title stays the same. So when this happens, what is really important, which I think is important, is that you should stop pushing ROI decks because you're solving the wrong problem. Think about not how I design my implementation around AI, but how I design and redesign the implementation around the role, around the people. Because when AI is really implemented, embedded in their workflow, the way they work on their day-to-day basis will be very different. How will that role look like? If it's not, oftentimes it's not clear to the frontline workers, then I think firms should really characterize what is the role will look like after being upgraded, not reduced. And then show them this pathway, how to really get to there. What are the new tasks they perform on a day-to-day basis? What are the new KPIs who do they report to? And I think these are really important for firms to think about how I sort of prevent some of the common failures in AI adoption that we might see.
No. Again, I love the description and the examples, because I was pulling up my phone because I was just talking to a friend of mine yesterday, and we were talking about this point. I had a long drive from New York.
In that it doesn't matter what we do, we're creatures of habit. And I'm older, I would guess, than a lot of people around here. And I've been in the industry now since 1998. And so I've seen the adoption of just Google it. I've seen, I was in the engineering testing department in which we went from manual testing to automated testing, and went from automated testing to offshoring. And all those have very similar mindsets of, we're creatures of habit. Our jobs are going to go away if we do this. And it's not true. It becomes an evolution into something more strategic. And AI is exactly the same way. So, from going to asking Google something in the early 2000s, which it didn't have to be Google, it could have been a search engine of your choice, but it just turned into Google because that's what we all know and love, and they're great at marketing. So there we have it. And AI is going to be the same thing. It's going to make the people that adopt it more efficient in what they do, make the companies that adopt it more efficient in what they do. But the other important thing is to make sure that as you go through that adoption of that change management process, so is it a delight to use? When you start your day and you work on something, you think, okay, I'm going to Google something. You know for sure you're going to Google something during the day. Are you going to jump onto Claude and have a conversation? Are you going to then trust what comes back? You trust that if you want to find a bar in Boston that has really good beer, you're going to come to Trillium, and Google will tell you. You want to have the same experience with AI, and so if you have a conversation about your work day, you're going to want to trust those results that come back are going to be good data quality, that you're not going to see things that you don't. Because if you just throw stuff in there, it's going to give you the results back at junk in, junk out. So you've got to have those guardrails in place so that you get that data back, but you've also got to have the mindset of, it's not here to take away my job, it's here to make my life better. Not even your job, even your home life. My wife plans a vacation on chat now, and so she's fully adopted it. We had a beautiful vacation in Greece last year, and chat gave us the itinerary, not some travel agent. So that's a perfect example of where it's been fully embraced and adopted at home as well as in the workplace.
Oh, thanks, Kris. I thought we were going to get into how it's helping people in dating apps, etc. So I wasn't sure. So no, it is. I mean, if you think about where ChatGPT, they published a few reports on what people are using it the most for. A lot of it was personal health, personal relationships, dating, etc. And then enterprise was moving, it was more so on pulling together a lot of information and synthesizing it quickly. So it'll be interesting to see the evolution over the next little while. The next question is around, because I think everybody thinks about this, is measurement and ROI. The reason I bring this up is because we're always looking at various metrics at companies, and we've always been looking at return on investment. What do you think startups need to look at for ROI and for metrics versus a large company? And can we talk about examples around that as well? So,
Okay. I think what we are seeing right now is some sort of a maturity transition in measurement. Early days, what we saw is firms look at what I call engagement metrics or excitement metrics. Basically, when you say in your company, we're going to have this AI initiative, how many people sign up? And that's an indicator for excitement. And when you do pilots, how many pilots you are running? And when you finally have the AI deployed, do people really log on and do they really click on something? So these are, I think, I'm not saying they are not relevant. They are important, so they indicate something, but they don't really tell whether you have a successful AI, AI implementation, especially when you're trying to really transform your organization. And the real metrics that I would really love to see, and I do see companies are doing this increasingly doing this over time, is behavioral change. Because in the end, the purpose of using AI is that you're hoping that AI can change how people are working, engaging customers, processing data, and making decisions. As a result, you're hoping for a better, not worse, a better outcome. So if they're not really changing behavior of your employee, I'm not really sure where the incremental outcome will really come from. So behavioral change. And the metrics that I'd say three things to watch out for. The first one is, of course, do people really use, right? So that is not just sign on once and then get back to things what they do the old ways. And the second is, do people override or change AI suggestions? You want a medium level. If they override a lot, that's perhaps what I call a symbolic adoption, meaning they are symbolic compliance just because their boss tells them to do so, but they're not really following AI suggestions. But you also don't want that 99% your employee are absolutely following AI suggestions, which means that you can remove this person and it's not going to make any change. So some medium level, and see them actually giving feedback to the AI output to have the AI receiving feedback from the real workflow and to improve the model over time. I think that's an important and very good metric. And the third is whether the ways people do their work and decision making are changing. And here's an example. So we all know Microsoft has this co-pilot. We work with them to assist their sales organization, the salespeople. And the reason is they find that surprisingly, salespeople are spending 70% of the time on admin stuff, some things that can actually be automated by AI, and only 30% on customer facing. But salespeople think about their role, they should be facing customers and building relationships. So if you have AI assisting your salespeople, one thing you want to track over time is, do they change the ways they work? With AI automating 70% of the admin stuff, are they spending more time on engaging with customers on building long-term relationship and trying to cross-sell, upsell products in your portfolio? Or are they just sitting there using AI to reduce the time they work, but then everything else is exactly the same? So behavioral change metrics, I think, will be the key to track.
No, that's great, Shunyuan, because I was thinking, we discussed when we were prepping for this discussion a product called Mixpanel, which is what we use at CREWASIS to see how customers are evolving in the platform. The funny thing is we're now using AI to watch AI, and so I feel like we're starting to get into movie level, right, everyone? Movies are going to start coming out. I mean, they're already out, but I think I was reflecting on your examples, saying it's kind of crazy because that's, even though you have AI watching the other things, you still have to interpret as a human, what do you want to go after? What changes are you going to make? And you need something to be able to see, are these true consumer behaviors or are they anomalies, right? When you don't have thousands of customers and you're still in an early stage, you need to be able to identify, is there an ability to convert this to a different behavior? So I appreciate that it's not a workflow can change, people are gonna resist it, and then it's about how do we figure out what the true examples are of taking on this new world of work and really implementing it at companies, and then really being able to accelerate it as well. So I think before companies move too far to agentic, you have to understand the human workflow, the AI workflow, and then get into the agentic workflow in concession. All right, Kris, ROI.
Thanks, Sharon. And I think for us, ROI on metrics within our platform ties into AI adoption as well. So think of traditional platform metrics that you talked about. So how many people log in, but then taking that a step further, what are they doing when they log in? How long are they spending within a platform? And sometimes it's not how long they spend, the length of time being an important time. Maybe just logging in and doing something and repeating it over and over again is a good thing, depending on that use case. But tracking those metrics and then understanding where the baseline is as well. So you do an event, some kind of adoption event on, this is a platform rollout to support whatever use case you have, and you get your end users involved. So you should go from a baseline to a level above. Does that level above then stay where it is? And what is that active usage definition? So you can have a couple of bullet points on what your active usage definition is, so that you can start tracking that and understand how you get to the next level after that. Because if you drop down to the baseline again, you failed. At my previous company, there was a platform adoption metric that was around active usage, monthly active usage of their entire customer base, that the entire employee base had a bonus plan. Part of their bonus plan was tracking to that metric. That's how important it was to get that adoption, and that showed to their investors and to their customers, this is what's working. Also, the active usage of something that's unique is also important. So you may have 10 end users leveraging AI or leveraging a platform that supports AI to do certain things, and you have that metric understood. And then something happens, something comes along that's unique and different. You need to be able to track what that is, what that anomaly is, so you can say, oh, is that an anomaly? Or is that going to be a new pattern that we need to look for and we need to start adopting and rolling out elsewhere?
Thank you, Kris. Yeah, I think it feeds into the next question too about, and we're going to prepare for questions soon, so I want to get everyone ready. We will have folks running with mics to ask questions. So we have a couple more questions on my end to ask. So one of them is on, where do you see the future trends on AI, and a little bit around the fear and anxiety. And then we also emailed out a handout for everyone on our personal perspective on AI, adopting AI, workflows, et cetera, just for you to be able to take away. So I'm going to get each of the panelists to share a little bit about that as well. So I'll pass it to Shunyuan first.
I'd say the first one, I think we're going to see maybe in the next 6 months to a year, in the near future, is where do really companies win when it comes to this AI competition. And I think the companies that will win are likely not those that have the best models. Sure, models are important, but the ones that figure out the human side. And actually, we just had this conversation before the panel with Sharon. There's an increasing commodity in the AI space. So very soon, you and your competitors are likely accessing very similar models through the same vendors. And it's the real win will come from who can really figure out the human side and redesign the role around the people whose identity are threatened by AI once the AI is implemented into their daily workflow. And the reason is that you need to first figure out the human side, and then you can have a good adoption and behavioral change, and an outcome follows the suit. And the second, I think, I'm not sure whether this will happen, but I think it will be interesting. I like to see how it will play out. I think maybe the AI success or failure of AI adoption will become a diagnosis tool for some of the internal problems that were not exposed before, but now are being exposed because of, or being, amplified because of AI. Now, sometimes the AI, you try to embed AI in your workflow and it doesn't work. Maybe it's because there are already some existing frictions in the workflow, in the organizational charts. For example, the definition of ownership, boundaries of different tasks, and KPI coordination. So some of the problems were already there, and now they're just being exposed or being made more visible because of AI. So that can actually become a diagnosis tool for your organization. And the third is, I think, the measurement, ROI, that we talked about. I am seeing, and I believe that firms are transitioning from sign-on or excitement metrics to behavioral change metrics and to real engagement metrics. That would be the three things that I say that we are seeing happening.
Great, Shunyuan. And then do you want to talk about your one-pager a little bit that you provided as a handout, which is also here? So for everyone, it was on your email. But we wanted to give you frameworks. It wouldn't be an HBS panel at all without something of a framework. I'm an advocate for them, so who doesn't like a good framework?
So it's the last page of your handout. This is, if you remember that we just talked about AI adoption failure and something that I call symbolic adoption, that people are using on the surface but not actually changing their behavior or embedding AI into their work. So on the left-hand side, you're seeing some of the sort of items that you can go through to make sure that whether you are facing a symbolic adoption issue and how you are going to design your strategy to really address them. So always start with, think about who is going to lose their identity or discretion, their control if AI gets implemented. Not necessarily the one who signs the contract, but the ones whose identity are being threatened, because these people will be the gatekeepers. And then you want to make sure that what are the identity threats that are there? Role compression, or their control being shifted, or their managers being afraid of their span of influence being reduced. And then the third is really a bundle of 5 dimensions that I present on the right-hand side, which is a bundling strategy of you to implement your AI adoption. And the third one, I think the fourth one, executive sponsorship. If you ask companies whether your CEOs, your C-suites are really embracing, endorsing AI initiatives, 99% the answer is yes, but I think sponsorship must be sustained and visible. It cannot be just giving a keynote speech or announcement and then walk away without real sponsorship and support in implementation. Oh, the last one, the timing matters. And this is something that really surprised me from my own research. We know this human fear and resistance exist. And if you ask, but when does the resistance get worsened or relieved? If you look for conditions where people are overwhelmed by a workload, when they are, being drowning in their workload, now presenting AI can make them feel relieved. So now AI is really saving their life, and they will be more willingly to accept AI. On the other hand, if you have people who really have the capacity to perform the tasks, and at this time, if you present AI, that makes them feel they are redundant, they can be replaced. So timing matters. Even for the same AI model, results will be very different. On the right-hand side, these are 5 dimensions of how you can really address the human fear problems, those frictions. I'm not going to go through each of them. Happy to talk offline. I'll just give the first one as an example. Redefine the role. And it should be a upgrade in the role, not elimination or reduction in the role.
Yeah, that's excellent, Shunyuan. One of the things for founders, for anyone actually working in this space, and even enterprise as well, is that the upgrades are happening so quickly, and the acceleration of AI has happened so quickly that if you are selling into enterprise or even thinking about building for enterprise, you have to keep at it. So to the point that Shunyuan was making across all these dimensions, even if it's not right in September, if you're going back to them in May, that's all of a sudden when the ears are perking up. And also that the platform that you're building or whatever it is that you're putting in front of an enterprise customer has changed or evolved. And that has happened many times to me as a founder. So I've realized that you just have to reposition, repackage, and keep at it. And all of these apply, and in particular more than ever with enterprise, because they are hungry. They just aren't sure what they should be picking right now. So you somehow have to stand out in a crowd of a lot of AI tools, similar to investors investing in AI companies right now. So Kris, this is our last question, and then we're putting it out to the audience. So I'm gonna ask Vishak to take my mic, because we're gonna run around the crowd after Kris's trends as well as your handout. And I will just say that my handout's in here. We can talk about it. By the way, it's emailed to you. So you should have received an email with PDFs, perfect. So for the handout I did for CREWASIS, not sharing any confidential information, but it's just how we go to market with our customers on building AI for them. So building for enterprise companies, we used this process over the last 4 years and did it over and over again. And this doesn't have to take years. Obviously, when I started the company, back during the pandemic when we were mulling around and nobody was talking to each other because you couldn't get a customer meeting, we worked with enterprise companies and tested, and we practiced this process. So for anyone interested, happy to talk to you about it afterwards, but it'll be helpful for you to understand that workflow and how it's helped us increase our revenue as an AI company. So Kris, your last words in terms of trends as well as your handout.
So I think in terms of trends, AI is going to accelerate significantly over the next 6, 12, 18 months. We're seeing it both as a provider to companies to build their AI adoption solutions, and we're front and center of that. But we're also a startup going through our own adoption of AI as well. And we're adopting AI to help our consultants become more efficient, but also we're adopting AI to make our platform more performant as well. So the way we classify documents that are being processed. In the past, we've looked at workshop-based activities that have organizations that know their data, work with us on classifying those things. Now, we're implementing with our platform ways to be able to automate that through AI. So you can have a conversation with our platform around a classification level of a document. And that's something that we're really excited about as part of our own adoption of AI, but also our platform helping others adopt AI. So it's a two-way street for us, and one we're learning all the time, and it's accelerating. So we're going through our own shadow AI to enterprise AI adoption right now, and it's really exciting.
Exciting.
And in terms of the data sheet that Sharon was referencing, so we have a two-sided data sheet here. The front is really, what is our base platform? Why is unstructured content so important? It's because there's so much of it. Structured data is what it is. You know it, you've defined it, and you have processes and governance around it. Can it be improved? Yes, absolutely. But it needs to be integrated with all your unstructured content. And from there, you need to be able to understand what jurisdiction you're in and how you comply to things like CCPA, GDPR, PDPL in Saudi Arabia, and DP in India. And so then you get to the point where later this year in Europe, they're going to have an AI-based legislation that is based on GDPR that you need to now comply to. So having the baseline capabilities within our platform, this is a foundation of what our platform's defined. And then on the back, you'll see there's 6 capabilities. So there's just a discovery, wrapping your arms around the data. there's the compliance that I've talked about and the automation around that compliance, applying policies around where you are and what your internal policies are. But then you've got to understand when you need to get rid of data so it's not polluting your system, polluting your adoption to AI, because you've got junk legacy data in there that you probably shouldn't even have in the first place. And then how do you automate the process of making sure that retention is kept in line with the current laws, and as time evolves, how those documents then go off into archive and quarantine locations. And then if the worst case scenario happens and you input all of your data into an AI model and you realize there's tons of personal information, private information that shouldn't be there, what's your risk footprint? How do you then say, crap, I made a mistake? What's my risk here? Who do I need to notify and when, based on where that breach happened? So all those things are wrapped into our platform. If you have any questions, happy to talk to you afterwards. And thank you for attending and keeping cool.
Thank you, Kris. And thank you to our panelists. So a big round of applause. We're going to open it up for questions. Are there any questions from our audience or from our team? Great. And just introduce yourself, your company, or who you represent, and then your question for which panelist as well. I think you have to talk louder, Adam.
Can you hear me now?
Now I can hear you.
Cool. So I'm Adam Carney. I work for a company called Panelists. We do software capability. My particular role is dealing with AI strategy for all growth sales. One of the things that we're running into is we have people that have a ton of demand for using AI tools, wanting to do really cool things with AI. Cool things with AI tools. And there's like a ton of the kind of grassroots demand and innovation, but the contra side of that is our cyber review process, cybersecurity review is really slow. And it takes like months to get things approved. We're still working on Claude MCPs, even though they've been available for several months now, and people are like banging down our doors. So how do the two of you think about, or three of you, think about balancing cybersecurity versus this kind of like need to move fast?
Is this microphone still working?
It was working. Okay, you need to talk louder, Kris.
Yeah.
Yell.
Can you hear me now? Yes. So I think stakeholder engagement is a really important thing here. We've found companies that are incredibly large that have adopted AI and things around AI because they've had the right stakeholder engagement up front. The worst thing you can do, especially with cybersecurity, because those guys will shut you down as soon as you start something if you don't engage them right up front. It's better to have them engaged up front and say, here's what you're doing, what processes do you have in place, so they can go off and then do their own due diligence while you're working on the sales cycle, working on the ways you can adopt AI, and then you can come together as well afterwards. But making sure that stakeholder engagement, specifically with security, that's really important, is right up front.
I have really good counsel on my team. No, all joking aside, I'm going to let Shunyuan answer this, and then I'm going to just add a couple 2 cents. But as a founder, it's a little bit different in terms of risk-taking behavior.
I'm not sure that I can add much after Kris as an expert talking about this. I'm not a cybersecurity expert, so if I may, I'll just take a step back and say, I think in general, this is a question of how do we balance accountability and efficiency or productivity. I think there's one example I saw was really interesting, which is Amazon has this supply chain, some kind of AI algorithm that's automatically checking how people are working, even their off time, and then automatically give assessment, even layoff decision automatically. Now, it is still the managers in the site who are managing their frontline workers. So the managers are still, they are holding accountable when something unhappy or something happened to their frontline workers. But the problem is this accountability and how much they own in terms of the authority are not balanced, because the managers cannot override or change how the model works. Sometimes maybe you do want to give an exception to the AI suggestion or output, knowing you want to give an excuse to the frontline worker who had a absent day. But AI doesn't know that, but they had no ability to override AI decision. And as a result, this was, got a lot of backlash. Now, this is not about cybersecurity, but to some extent, I think it speaks to the delicate balance about where do we draw the line between the effectiveness and accountability that we want to hold people for.
Yeah, that was excellent, Shunyuan and Kris. We're going to wrap up questions. I know if you have more questions, we're going to go inside and have a drink. So you're all invited to get a drink ticket and come inside with us. Thank you so much to Trillium Brewery for hosting us, especially since we're in the community area. So I have to say thank you to Trader Joe's as well for this community space. For Shunyuan and Kris, thank you so much for being partners here in Boston and for coming on the panel with me. This is the first of many, because I know we will have many more things to talk about in this space. I also want to say thank you to my team. So if you're part of the CREWASIS students, we have a large co-op program for anyone out there with Northeastern. And Northeastern has been a partner of CREWASIS for about 5 years. Back in the pandemic, the data scientists approached me on LinkedIn and said they needed internships, and we created an entire program for them. So I want to say special thank you to Northeastern. For my team, can you just put your hands up? And I want to say special thanks to our cameraman, because Mohit took over that really today. And then Vishak, who has been the team lead on this for you as well, to make sure that everything went really well. So, and for all of our individuals that came out today, thank you so much. We are in New York throwing another panel with the New York Angels. So if you happen to be in New York, we're hosting an event next Thursday at 5 p.m. June 4th. So you can see us in the New York Tech Week calendar. In addition, I would be remiss as a founder if I didn't say that we are raising our seed round. We are raising a $2 million on a $10 million post-safe. We are a Techstars founded company. We are also HBS alum and part of the entrepreneurs group at Harvard Business School. We also represent On Deck, and they are a cohort that helps founders when they're in the earliest stages. And as part of that, I just want to say thank you to anyone who supported us to get us here today, and have a great rest of the week, and thank you.
That is Prof.
Oh, Kris.
Yeah, done.
Done.
All right.
Yeah, okay. We're heading inside for a drink, non-alcoholic or alcoholic, whatever you prefer, but please go ahead. I forgot to give the thank you gifts. Thank you, team. Thank you, Shunyuan, and thank you, Kris, for being on our panel.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. I really appreciate
It's my
it.
pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Oh my
I know
God, my iPhone.
when it's going to always overheating. I'm overheating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's head inside. Let's get a glass of water or something. You can leave it here. Yeah, these guys. Even my thing started overheating.
Sorry, can we do a quick photo?
Yes.